This is Heritage Radio.
Assalamu alaikum everybody, it's Converts in Conversation on Heritage Radio 90.6 FM, and today we are talking about isolation and socialisation. So it's me, Jodie, and
Zara. Hey, assalamu alaikum.
And Alice. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum everybody. So where do we start with?
It's a big one. We've had quite a lot of questions come through on social media throughout the week. I'll just give you a brief overview of what those questions were, so that if anybody who's listening thinks of any additional questions throughout the show, you're welcome to send it through on Instagram, which is Converts in Conversation. I will keep the social media open throughout. So these are the questions that we've had so far. Firstly, can I still go out with my non-Muslim friends and family? One of them, which was just straight to the point, go where, do what? Another one is, I'm used to just going out to the pub. What do I do now? I'm a Muslim. If all my friends are non-Muslim, am I better off alone? Am I best off making friends with strict Muslims? Surely they would make better friends. How do I make new friends? If my new friends wear hijab, does that mean I have to, so that I fit in? I'm finding being a new Muslim lonely. Nobody understands me. And just before the show, I think we all just had a glance over those questions and agreed that they all really resonate with all of us. But where would you ladies like to start?
I mean, maybe we could start with kind of a brief discussion about our own experiences, and then go on to answer the questions. The end or halfway through-ish, so we give it a good amount of time, because we've got so many questions. There's so much to get through, isn't there?
Yeah, it's quite a juicy topic. I think for me, I know that we touched on it in the first show when we were talking a little bit about our first experiences as a Muslim. And for me, I isolated myself. That was a choice that I had made, just because I decided that there was just so much to learn, and it was so overwhelming trying to focus on all the things I needed to learn. And most of my friends, our common interest at the time before I was a Muslim was going out and having a glass of wine, or having a glass of wine at home. And trying to remove that, I then really couldn't quite work out what we actually had in common. So I spent a lot of time by myself initially, and then going into the mosque and meeting all these different types of Muslims, it was really hard to decide who out of all of them I wanted to sort of try and make friends with. And I did find myself gravitating towards people who were more of my personality, and I'm not sure from a Muslim point of view, certainly as a convert, if that's the ideal thing to do, because are you gravitating towards people that just remind you of your old self again? Is it just going back into your comfort zone when you've really taken yourself out of your comfort zone? Alice, what about you?
I did the same. I kind of isolated myself from all my friends. For me, it was out of embarrassment, because, like, you know, growing up, we'd always kind of taken the mick out of religious people, like at school, like Christian Union, like, oh, God Squad and all this, and like take the mick, and just thought anyone that was like religious was a bit weird, even though I was raised Christian myself. So when I converted, I just felt a bit, I don't know, just a bit uncomfortable. And even like some friend had made a comment, like, because I think this was when I was on Twitter, and I'd made like a comment about like, and I'd used like Alhamdulillah, something like that, and they'd gone, now I can laugh about it, but at the time I felt really like embarrassed by it. They went, yeah, all right, Barry, you know, like Barry from Four Lions. But at the time I was so mortified that someone who knew me had seen that, and I ended up like blocking loads. I don't remember. It's funny, even my brother calls me that now, but at the time, like, I was so humiliated and mortified, and so I blocked a lot of people, cut a lot of people out. A lot of friends I just sort of distanced myself from, fell out of touch with, because I was embarrassed, and I cared too much about what other people thought about me, clearly. And then over time I kind of made my way back with my friends, and you know, a good proportion of my friends are people that have known me for the longest time, and I like having that kind of anchor into my past. And they're the ones that have been the most respectful, the most understanding, the most that are like, Alice, should we go for a meal, rather than, oh, you know, let's go to the pub. But I managed to cut the wheat from the chaff. Like the friends that I literally just met up with that were fair weather friends, that it was only because, you know, you only saw them once they'd been dumped by their boyfriend, and then they were out all the time, and then as soon as they got a new boyfriend you never saw them. Those sorts of friends obviously fell by the wayside, because because there was nothing that we held as common ground. But my friends that had we had a real firm history and we had such similar interests, they've still stayed. But it took me a while to kind of get to make that kind of transition, and in the early days it was really difficult, and I did feel quite alone.
Yeah, and you do feel vulnerable as well, sort of when it comes to who you can and can't make friends with. What about you, Jode?
I think I'm a little bit the other way. So I had that element of I'm embarrassed of all these changes that I'm choosing to do and all that sort of stuff, but equally I was almost like, I don't want to cut people off, because then will I have any friends?
Yeah.
But then what ended up happening was, because I was changing, friends then started to cut me off. So it's a case of, well, we go out drinking, I don't really know what to do, so let's not meet up. And I had a lot of that, but it was friend after friend after friend, so it was like, oh my gosh, life as a Muslim, I'm just going to be really alone forever. But Twitter was the thing for me. Twitter was like this safe space, and essentially Twitter is what not got me converted, but essentially I spoke to a sister on Twitter, she linked me up with someone in Manchester, went to meet the sister, took my shahada. So it was like Twitter was like my lifeline to any social sort of remit at all.
Yeah, you've talked about that before,
that's how we know each other, because back in 2013, 2014, Muslim Twitter, as it was, you look, I'm on Twitter now in like a professional capacity, and sometimes I delve back in, I'm like, it's not changed. It's exactly the same as it was 7 years ago. Like, it's still people with the thirsty marriage-seeking tweets, but that's a whole other story for another time. But definitely for REVERT'S, for me, it was a lifeline, because I didn't know anyone, and I've made some very good friends that I'm still friends with to this day through Twitter.
No, I think I'm not very trusting when it comes to people that I meet online straight away. It takes me a while. I think it's that whole fear of being friend catfished. Like, who is it that you're really talking to? I mean, don't get me wrong, I've got a couple of friends that I've made online, and I speak to them daily, but for me to be able to make a true friend, I have to sort of be able to see them and sort of bounce ideas and go out and socialise and see how we gel. I mean, I'm all right by myself. I'm quite a bit of a loner naturally. I like my own company. So I was all right with taking my time to find some good friends, and I did, alhamdulillah, I found some really, really good friends at the mosque, and we did have very similar personalities, but they were also really understanding and patient with me, and the fact that I didn't know anything, and taught me some stuff. There were times when I just pretended I knew what they were talking about. And I had no idea. Going Google.
Of course I've heard that book. I know.
Of course I know what we're doing. And I had no idea whatsoever. And I think it takes time to build up that trust with those friends.
It's being open to being vulnerable and
definitely
knowingly not knowing stuff. And being okay with that, and going, actually, I don't know how to do that. I still remember the time where a sister said, oh, do you want to lead prayer? And I'd been Muslim maybe 3 weeks, and I went, oh my gosh, no, I can't do that. And she's like, but it's really easy, you pray every day. And I'm like, I know, but I've no idea how to lead someone else. So I literally just went, no, I'm not doing it. And I had a bit of a little paddy, and she went, okay, no, I'll do it, you just copy it. And then we used to pray together, but she used to purposely do it nice and slow, so now I know how to
That's
pray
nice.
with really nice pronunciation and everything, because I've essentially learnt off her.
I've probably led prayer twice in my whole Muslim life, because I just find it, especially the out loud ones, I'm just like, no thank you.
Every syllable like with the English accent is,
the Manc accent. It's not great. But I don't know about you guys, I took my lead in, just going back to the question of what do I do, where do I go as far as socialising is concerned, I took my lead from those people that I'd made friends with. Like, where are they going, what are they doing? And I don't know about you, but I felt like I was regressing age-wise, because all of a sudden it was constantly going to the cinema, bowling, going for milkshake, going for dessert. And for me, initially I was like, oh, I've not done these things since I was a really young teenager, and even then I probably was still going out to the pub before I should have. So it did feel like I was doing things that, but you do get used to it, and you do find your footing.
And actually now I find it quite wholesome, like when I look at like sort of younger Muslim sisters in like my family and stuff like that, who are like sort of early 20s, and they're doing these kind of really wholesome activities. And when I think what I was like, and we were sort of like just going to bars and be like, oh, there's a group of boys over there, let's dance near them and all that, and I just like cringe. And I think it's so lovely that they do these like really kind of like wholesome activities that I was like, oh no, we're too old to do that now, we're going to the pub from like 16 years old, So I appreciate appreciate it. And now I don't think twice about it, but at the time it was a difficult transition.
Definitely. I also find myself getting really creative with what to do in my spare time. Like you saw a post that I did recently where I signed
oh my god, it was so cute.
to like an online craft session that was over Zoom. And I had my little paintbrushes out and just sat in my bedroom getting crafty. Just doing things like that. And Ministry of Craft, I don't know what activities they've got going on at the moment, but me and my Muslim sister, I know that I spoke about that before, that I have got a Muslim family that sort of adopted me in. We always find stuff to do, like going to calligraphy classes. We've not done that one yet, but that is next on the hit list. Making paper flowers. We find all sorts to do, and there's all sorts in Manchester if you actually try and get creative with what you can do. And some of these things you can go and do them by yourself if you want, but often it's just more fun to kind of grab a friend, even if it's a non-Muslim friend, that are happy to go along to these. If you've got someone who you've been friends with for a long time and you're used to going to the pub or to a bar or whatever, maybe invite them to something more crafty or artsy, or to the art gallery.
That's it. And this is, I remember we went to a thing last November. We went to a concert, and I remember you saying then, like, you always try and do something new at least once, and that's really kind of stuck with me, because I thought that'd be like that's a really kind of like nice attitude to have, always try something new. It's because sometimes you get in a rut and not want to do things, and so I really kind of like that. And I think in some ways, like, the pandemic sort of helped, because there's so much more kind of online things to do and try. So there's so much out there, and I think sometimes you get stuck in a rut before you're Muslim, where you're always kind of doing the same things. We're going to the pub, and you don't really think about the other sort of things that are around. And there is, and you can still, do those things with your non-Muslim friends. I think it's almost as you're growing up as a non-Muslim, you learn that at like 15, 16 you start going out, at 17, 18 you go to the pub, and it's almost like this societal pressure of this is what you should do.
This is what adults do.
And this is what mature people do. And I think that's why we sort of we feel like we're regressing, because we're going back to stuff we used to do, but actually did we consider it enjoyable? Did we take our time enjoying it? All of that sort of stuff. And it's almost like it's been coloured by that societal expectation of 17-year-olds should be going down the pub. And
to be honest, now the thought of doing something like that is a little bit boring. The thought of just sitting in a bar and just talking. Not that I don't enjoy talking to you ladies or to any of my friends, but I do enjoy doing different things, going and seeing different cities, go to art galleries, go to the theatre more. We went to, what was that thing we went to a while ago?
Syrian Ensemble.
It was amazing.
So
just
good, yeah.
Keeping an eye out, and I find that I'm logged on Instagram and Twitter to different sort of organisations that hold events.
Eventbrite's good as well. Eventbrite, it's really great for sort of. I think that's where I found that Syrian Ensemble, actually, on there, and all those sort of Kurdish events. It's like a Kurdish festive week in November or something. There's a whole week or 2 weeks of activities.
There was some stuff going on in Longside for that, wasn't there?
I've got a very, very good friend who she's not Muslim, she's Christian, she doesn't drink. So we've got those two things in common. Both believe in God, both don't drink.
Yeah.
So we tend to find random vegan veggie restaurants, because we know we'll both be able to eat, no restrictions and things, and we just go around touring those.
Yeah,
and it's really fun. And we'll meet up, and it's not like she's going, what do you do at the weekend? I had this many glasses of wine. There's none of that at all. It's just really nice talk that I can really relate to. And I find she's probably one of my best friends that I have in my local area.
One of my best friends, she's probably my best friend, Alex. Shout out Alex if you're there. She's a non-Muslim. I mean, I didn't know her before I converted, and I got to know her once I was probably a bit stronger and a bit more confident as a Muslim. But our relationship is great. She believes in God, she has all her beliefs and I have mine, and we respect each other's belief systems, but also each other's lifestyles and what isn't okay for each other. So we travel together, we go out for dinner together, and it hasn't been a block at all. And she supports me 100%, and she'll check if there's halal options. It's not about going to places that sell alcohol. It's always really, as you say, Alice, wholesome stuff, and we just really, really have fun and get along with each other. So I think for anybody out there who's struggling about whether it's a non-Muslim or a Muslim, there are people who will tell you that you're only able, and I think we've probably all experienced this, people who've will tell you that you're only supposed to have Muslim friends, and you should definitely have Muslim friends, but you need to pick those just as carefully as you need to pick your non-Muslim friends, because not everybody who is a Muslim is practicing or has the right intentions, is as good for you as other people. I mean, it is a minefield out there when it comes to what friends and different people, because just because someone follows a religion, it doesn't mean that they don't have their own struggles, and that they might need to lean on you and get support from you. And certainly early on, I remember when I was really new as a Muslim, I'd met somebody who, I'm not bashing anybody, but she was really struggling in her faith, and she was a born Muslim, and it was all about, I really need to look to you, and I really need help from you. And I was in no position to give anybody advice or help or be anybody's sort of goal, because I really was not there, and I was really struggling myself.
It's that intention, isn't it? And if, whether someone's Muslim or not, if they have good intentions towards you and they respect whatever beliefs you have, then you will have friends who are not Muslim who will look up places that don't sell alcohol, and you will have Muslim friends who aren't actually that bothered, and maybe those aren't the circles you want to go into, and it's working out what circles are actually healthy for you and your faith.
Absolutely. And it's okay to understand that circle might change, that when you first become enter Islam and you make a certain set of friends, maybe as your journey develops you add friends to the circle, or maybe certain friends will leave that circle, and that's okay too, because it's all part of the journey.
Absolutely. I think it's coming up for a time for a break, so we're going to have a little chill and we'll put some lovely sounds on for you guys, so we'll be back after the break. Assalamu alaikum guys, welcome back to Converts in Conversation, 90.6 FM on Heritage Radio. You're here with Jodie, Zara and Alice, and we're talking about socialising and isolation. So I think we're coming to some questions next. We've had quite a few through social media, so what have we got?
So the first one is, can I still go out with my non-Muslim friends and family? Who wants to pick that one up? I think we kind of covered it in the first section, in that it's about where you go to and their level of understanding of what you're comfortable with.
Understanding, isn't it? Because I still remember it was. So I converted in January and I went out for a birthday meal in the May, and I remember going to a Greek place and there was loads of veggie options, so I was like, this will be safe. But my family didn't know at the time that I was Muslim, because I was still in the secret Muslim mode. And my dad got this like cheese and ham thing. He was like, you need to try some, and I was like, I don't fancy it, it's okay. But now, since he's known, he's made all those accommodations for me, and he's been really good. It's the same with friends. You know, if they're going to make accommodations for you, then in my opinion that they're fine to hang around with. But if, for example, and I've had it suggested before, just come out and don't have a drink, you know, I'm only going to have a bottle of wine, it'll be fine. Actually, I don't want to be in that environment, and as my friend you shouldn't expect me to if I'm not comfortable.
If you're not comfortable, definitely. And it's about being able to communicate and say what I think in the early days people probably don't find it as easy to express what they do and don't feel comfortable, and that can probably be where isolation comes in, because you just cut yourself off rather than having those difficult conversations. But I think if the people that you're with love you and respect you and they are truly your friends, then they will understand, and they'll probably, you know, there'll be times when they're probably embarrassed because they won't have thought. A lot of people just don't think, and that's because why would they in some situations? It wouldn't be at the forefront of their mind. So I think it's about opening up and just communicating with your friends and your family about what you can and can't do.
Absolutely, because I mean, if you think about when we converted and the amount of rules you need to learn and understand, none of our friends that are non-Muslim know any of that.
No, of course, and they don't have a vested interest in it in that way to start looking into it by themselves.
I think I see it now as an opportunity. So if someone doesn't know, so it rather than oh gosh, I've got to speak up, so it's more actually I've got an opportunity to educate someone.
And they'll really appreciate it.
Exactly.
I think my answer would be that yes, it's fine to hang around with your non-Muslim friends and family, as long as you're not compromising yourself but pick your battles is what I've learned, because I don't want to go to the pub with a group of friends while they're getting absolutely wasted. I mean, I wouldn't go into a pub anyway because I wouldn't feel comfortable, but if I go for a meal with my mum and dad, I'm not going to tell them they can't have a drink with their meal. Do you see what I mean? Like, you got to pick you pick your battles. You pick what is, because you can't go in hard, especially in the early days, because you're already in a very vulnerable place. Pick your battles. Don't go to the pub. Don't hang around with people that are paralytic. But also, just pick your battles. Really, is the best advice I can give. Really,
it reminds me of my mum and dad. They might say, "Oh, we want a drink this evening. Oh, but we can't bother going to the shop. Jodie, could you just pop in the car and pop to the shop?" And back in the day, it'd be like, "Oh yeah, okay." Now Muslim are like, "Actually, I can't buy the alcohol," and they're like, "But you're not drinking it. What's the problem?" But now they've learned Jodie can't buy the alcohol, so what they'll do is bring up my sister. Can you go with Jodie to the shop and just buy the alcohol while she does, the week shop, getting the bread and the milk or whatever. But they don't ask me to do stuff that they know doesn't fit within my faith, and they're okay with that.
That's nice.
And should be
absolutely
similarly respectful.
Yeah, definitely. One of the next questions. I'm used to going out. This fits in perfectly with that. I'm used to going out to the pub. What do I do now that I'm Muslim? That fits in with another question that was there, which was go where, do what.
Well, like you said, art galleries. I love art galleries.
Yeah,
I really do. And I think, to be cheesy, it's almost like you get a different perception of the art and things you're looking at because you've got faith.
Yes.
And it's different from when you used to look at it, for me anyway. But also things like National Trust. So I'm a National Trust member. I love just walking around the parks, having a nosy at the old buildings and just...
And you do get a new appreciation for nature and just the beauty of everything that's natural when you go for a walk in the park. It is different to when I used to probably just be cutting through the park to get somewhere. Actually just taking a minute to appreciate everything that's around you really makes a difference when you've got faith.
I think if you're looking for sort of nighttime activities, like things to go out and do, like obviously meals, dessert places, but also, I mean, I've had a look, and I don't think there is one in Manchester, but there's definitely a few in central London, and there are a few bars that are designed for the teetotal community, which is quite large. Again, this is from like sort of a meetup and those sorts of apps. When I was in London, I wanted to make new friends. I belonged to like the women's teetotal group. And it was women of mixtures. There was Muslims, there was non-Muslims, but it was they wanted to go out on an evening, have a nice time, have a chat, have a mocktail, but they didn't want to be around people who are drinking alcohol because the vibe can change. And there are a few. I actually went for one of my Muslim friends, her birthdays. There's a bar in Soho which is a non-alcoholic bar. It's like a basement bar.
Oh, that's so cool.
And so you kind of got that vibe, but it's not an alcohol, no one's drinking there. So if that's that's a kind of way of maybe like transitioning yourself into the new lifestyle, kind of weaning yourself off that kind of pub club life. I mean, I've had a look, and there isn't really. I think there is a bar in central Manchester which is a teetotal bar. Obviously, it's not open at the moment due to COVID, but I think it's something that's becoming bigger. The teetotal community is growing massively, so that's another way you could find sort of nighttime, evening activities. Try teetotal groups on Meetup and Eventbrite and things like that, and you'll be surprised there are a lot of people meeting up, and that's a way of making new friends as well.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? That the whole teetotal, I suppose, movement. It is growing. It is, outside of the Muslim community. So I know when I converted, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like almost like a bit of a leper. People aren't going to be able to relate to me, and I'm not going to be able to socialise. But actually, there are people other than Muslims who don't want to drink. And a lot of young people, I think, I was reading the literature, it says a lot of young people nowadays are moving away from alcohol and cigarettes that back in the early 2000s, late 90s was like it was cigarettes and drinking, but they're moving away from that now to kind of more sort of wholesome. We used to call it straight edge lifestyle, where you don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't take drugs. So I think the growth of that in young people, we may just see more sort of that sort of thing going on, which would be great for all of us. Really.
Yeah, definitely. And if there's anybody who's listening who wants to post on our social media about places that they're aware of that do great mocktails or places that you can go for teetotal nights out, then post it and we will share it because we could all do with a few tips about that. Yeah.
There's also I don't know what they're called now. I have to look on Instagram, but there's like a Manchester Muslim ladies' night, and they were running events before COVID, and they do sort of like they're like a female DJ, and it's like a party, and so there are things around. It's just trying to find them, really,
especially in the current climate.
Absolutely.
So another one was, am I best off making friends with strict Muslims? Surely they would make better friends.
I think it depends on how strict we're talking.
And what do we mean by strict?
Yeah.
And what is strict?
What is
'Cause
strict?
I know I've had friends where we got on, we were on the same page. They became stricter to the point where it'd be like, "Oh, Jodie, why are you wearing jeans today? That's haram." And I'd be like, "Well, I'm wearing a tunic over them. You can only see my ankles. I don't see what the problem is."
So are we going to assume by the word strict that the
zealous
that the person meant extremely practicing?
But then
or
I think
do we mean it can be read in many different ways, can't it? Really,
it's problematic where like practicing becomes like zealous. Because praying 5 times a day shouldn't be seen as practicing; should be the norm.
Yes,
and so therefore those people are practicing. But I think it's when
be seen
people
as strict.
are zealous. I think it's when people are zealous. That's when there can be real difficulties.
I think if people come across in a harsh sort of haram police way. As a new Muslim, new convert trying to find new friends, I don't think I would have found that helpful. I think it would have been too much.
I think you'd burn out pretty quickly, because to try and keep up with that, there were a couple of mosques that I went to when I first converted that were that the sisters that were there were, as you would say, zealous, and they had lovely intentions and they were a lovely group of sisters, but I was just no way near ready to be where they were at, and I think finding myself in their company too much made me feel bad about myself more than anything, and it really clouded my judgment on myself and what I was doing, what I was ready for. And because people who are so zealous about what they believe in, and it's great, but if you're someone who's not as knowledgeable or who is still learning, that can be it can make things that are already difficult even harder, and trying to go and do all the research to find out where the actual rules are and where the references are, it can just become a full-time job just dealing with that bit rather than concentrating on the basics. So I personally really early on found it too overwhelming and needed people who were similar to me, if not a little bit further ahead.
And I think as well, like practicing people who are truly practicing and their hearts are just full of iman and love for Allah, like they are the most serene, calm people, and they will give you'll ask them a question about Islam and the answer they will give you will be so common sense, easy, which is what Islam is, rather than some, you should be doing this, astaghfirullah, blah, 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 blah. People that are truly, their hearts are pure and clear, are the most gentile, calm, beautiful people. And when they give you advice, it's like, oh my gosh, of course. It's just like, of course, it's that easy, it's that simple. And that's what I found, So I think having practicing friends, absolutely 100%, it would be so helpful. It gives you a foundation. It fills your heart with love for the religion, but just when people are quite zealous in their beliefs and maybe don't advertise it in a sensitive way or can come across as quite harsh, then maybe not. It can be quite difficult sometimes.
It makes me think of like when you're at school and you have a harsh teacher, you must learn this, how much did you actually learn? Whereas if you had a teacher that sit down and go, okay, this is what we're trying to get our heads around,
thank you,
understand you as a person first,
a really different approach that you process in a really different way. And I know what you mean with those people that just have nur pouring out of them, and you just walk, and they're like a hug of a person. You walk and you just think, oh, I feel so nice right now because you're just such a lovely person, and it's that intention is really, really different.
Definitely. Leading on from that, one of the questions that probably fits in with spending time with people who are at a stage that you're not yet at is, if my new friends wear hijab, does that mean that I have to, so that I fit in?
No.
In short, no. Definitely not.
That should not be your reason for wearing hijab at all, because it will not stay on your head if you're wearing it for other people. That's the reality.
I think that's the very short and to the point answer, because I get that there are people who do that. People who do that for a number of reasons, whether it's because they feel pressure to fit in, because they're the only one in their group maybe that doesn't, and they're the new Muslim. And it goes back to what we were talking about last week, which is to do with identity. And I think a conversation I had in between sort of last week and now was with someone who was saying that from a convert point of view, if you're in a group of friends and everyone bar one or two are wearing hijab, and those people happen to look on the face of it like they come from a traditional Muslim background, the assumption is that they're a Muslim but they just don't wear hijab, and that's fine. If as a convert, in particular a white convert, if you're with a group of people who are wearing hijab and you're not, the assumption is not that you're a Muslim but that you just don't wear hijab. The assumption is that you're not a Muslim. And I think the person that I was speaking to was saying that she felt the need, certainly early on, to wear one so that identity wise she felt that she really did fit in with those people that she was spending her time with, and so that other people, that she didn't have to explain herself as much, because the assumption was, as a convert, if you take your scarf off or if you don't wear one, then it's just that you've reverted back to whatever you were before, not that you're a Muslim who isn't ready to wear hijab yet, or that is your battle and you're struggling with that. So that was a really interesting question for me, and I think that you shouldn't feel under pressure to wear it just because your friends do, because, as Alice says, inevitably it ends up coming off.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? I feel like I really relate to that, because I remember, so I used to drive from home, which is in Cheshire, to meet up with friends in Manchester. Parents didn't know I was Muslim, so I'd leave the house without a scarf, drive to like a local shopping car park, stick the scarf on, then drive to a friend and be like, oh hey, and she's like, oh, you're wearing hijab, mashallah. And it was like, oh my gosh, I'm living two lives now. It feels really disconnected and incongruent. It just doesn't fit. And then the first time I came back from my friends, I thought, you know what, I'm not going to take it off. I'm going to walk in the house with it. And all the way driving home, I was going, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're going to do this. And I walked in and my dad went, what's that on your head? And I went, yeah, I've got something to talk to you about.
Wow, you're brave.
So we sat there, he talked, and he was like, so you're one of these Muslims now? And I'm like, yeah, I am. And he's like, right, okay, yeah, I will get my head around that. And it was, but he had more of an issue with me wearing a scarf, but I felt more congruent, because it was like, actually,
you're not Hannah Montana.
For me, it's not this life in Manchester versus this life in Cheshire.
Oh my gosh, yes,
and it was a really big transition. So then I started wearing it socially, just out and about. If I go to the shop, stick it on. But I never wore it at work for a long time. That was the bit that took the longest for me, because I was so worried. I worked in the NHS. I was so worried about patients looking at me and going, what? This is a really white area with no Muslims. What's going on? So for me, it was almost like I needed to be congruent with myself, and therefore I could start making friendships that were congruent with me. Because otherwise it was like, which version of myself am I having in this friendship? Because that's just gets really confusing and messy.
Oh, I remember that life. My boot of my car was just filled with abayas and headscarves, and all the pins were in the headrest of my car. And I remember once my mum was away, and I was going up to East London for the evening, and I put on an abaya, like a really sparkly back in the day, you know, with like black one with like loads of sparkle. And I came down the stairs, and my dad kind of looked, and I didn't have anything on my head because I was going to put that on in the car. I'm not silly, you know. And I came down the stairs, and he looked at me, and I just went, "Oh, I'm going to an Arabian Nights themed party," and he was like, "Oh, okay."
It reminds me of Superman, you know, when he like gets into the phone booth and spins around, he's like, so it's like you put like that, but in the boot of your car.
Honestly, my whole car, like I would never let my mum. We went shopping once. She went to open the boot. I was like, no, just put it in the back seat. Put it in the back seat. She's like, why? I'm like, oh, I've got loads of stuff in there.
Yeah, don't go in the boot.
Loads
of a secret boot with all the stuff.
So another question, and this is one that we definitely all related to, I think, or related with. I'm finding being a new Muslim lonely. Nobody understands me.
Absolutely.
That's a really difficult one, because I mean, if everything that we're talking about is something that you just can't quite reach yet, if you can't, now is a particularly difficult time, especially if you just converted whilst mosques aren't really open and all these events aren't really happening. I would definitely say try and reach out on Instagram. Alice and Jodie, you're more on Twitter. I'm useless at Twitter. We do have a Twitter page, but I am useless on Twitter. But apparently there's a community on there.
Oh, it's a whole Muslim Twitter. That was my lifeline, because I was in Cheshire. I didn't know of any Muslims locally. I had emailed the local mosque, but they said we don't do convert stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm not brave enough to go in, because I don't know where I'm going in and all that business. So for me, Twitter really was that thing that made me feel less isolated.
And is there like a particular hashtag or a particular group, or is it just about getting out there and seeing?
It's a real mix.
I don't even know how I started to find people. I think I just searched for hashtags about I can't even remember.
REVERT'S.
Can't remember. I don't even know how I did.
People can always find me on Twitter, so I'm on my business profile, so it's House Healing CBT, and then you will find people that I follow.
Other people.
I'm very much in the Twitterverse of
And also on Facebook we have Muslim Revert Sisters in Manchester, which is a group that's 40 members in there now, and it's growing every day. It's run by Suleiman, who she's trying to cultivate a space for Muslim sisters in the local area, and eventually, inshallah, we want to start organising some meetups, some gatherings. I think she's trying to plan one for September, but she's a very lovely sister. So please, if you're on Facebook, that's a fantastic group to join. She's always sort of advertising our radio show as well. So yeah.
Right, it's that time again. We're going to take a little break, let you guys have a breather and process all the stuff we've talked about. So we will see you in a few minutes. Goodbye for now.
Put 3 on.
Assalamu alaikum, guys. You're back with Converts in Conversation on 90.6 FM. We're talking about socialising and isolation, and I think we're going to spend a little bit of time about the how-tos, how to make friends, how to link in with people. Where do we want to start with that?
So we're going to discuss sort of like mixed situations. You know, I mean, for me personally, I never really had that many male friends to begin with, and they were sort of friends of friends, so it never really was an issue for me. But I know some people, they do have very strong sort of platonic friendships with males, and then when it comes to converting, how do you navigate that? You know, maybe cutting someone off that's been a friend since you were a teenager. It's not something that I really ever experienced, because I just didn't. I went to an all-girls school. I was always in a very female profession. My degree was all women essentially, so I've never really had that many male friends anyway. Did anyone else have that difficulty?
I'm in a similar position to you, Alice. So I did go to a mixed high school, but it was kind of, you know, boys stay there, girls stay there.
Yeah.
But in terms of profession, degree and all that, it was very women centric. So I didn't really have that issue when I came to convert. The only friend that I did have was an old housemate, and as soon as I converted, he deleted and blocked me off everything.
Oh gosh.
I think he was from a Hindu background, very much disagreed with Muslims. That was his stuff, so it was like, actually that's done something for me.
That for you.
I've not had to do that bit, so that was my own really experience.
I did have some male friends, just who I worked with and from going to school, and I've still bumped into a few of the friends that I went to school with now, and they refer to me by my old name and sort of ask me how I am. But alhamdulillah, it's never a situation where they're asking me to meet up or hang out or anything like that. And the friends that I had through work before I became a Muslim sort of fell by the wayside automatically, because I changed my job. I went from the legal profession into, well, nothing for a while, and then into the healthcare profession. So they sort of fell by the wayside. What has been somewhat difficult to navigate is new male friends and keeping them at arm's length, just because you do automatically, when you're in a mixed working environment, come across males that you maybe become friendly with on a professional basis, and then it's getting them to understand that this is just a professional relationship. We're not friends like that. We can't hang out like that. Don't try and cross over. It's making that line clear in the sand, I think. And some people do struggle with that more so than others, and I think some people definitely still have the point of view. Sorry, that was Siri just getting all involved. And I think some people do genuinely struggle because they're of the mind that men and women can be just friends, because that's what they've had all of their lives. Definitely if they convert later in life and they've had male friends all along, it can be really difficult, and then it gets difficult if you get married and how your husband then would feel about that.
Well, yeah, this is what I was just saying in our break, wasn't it, about, so me and my husband are quite happy to socialise with other husband and wife couples, but I would only be comfortable if it was that couple, you know. So say if the other wife went away, so I would feel really awkward. It's like, well, no, we can sit in the same room because we've got young children as well, so the children will be playing, we're all sat chatting to each other. It all feels okay and above board because my husband's there, her husband's there, that feels okay. But for some people that doesn't feel okay, and it's it's how to navigate. It's a very different.
Yeah, and I think that's going back to cultures as well, isn't it? So in some cultures it would be completely normal and okay and encouraged for couples and families to get together as a group to go out to do something. So if you come from a really sort of social background where you enjoy that, and then you end up marrying into a culture where that's definitely frowned upon, and the couples would never go out for dinner because the husband doesn't want his wife to be sat with another man at dinner. These are all things that I suppose, and we will get to marriage on another day, which is a huge topic.
That'll probably be a season.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a whole topic on its own. But definitely, if you're somebody who needs that social side of things when looking at the people that you're spending time with and the person that you're marrying, that's definitely something that you need to have a conversation about, I think.
I think having your spouse policing your friends in general, I think you'd have to sort of think long and hard, to be honest. I don't know.
It can be a bit of a red flag, can't it?
It depends where it's coming from, really. If it's a place of concern or it's a place of control. But I'm sure we'll discuss that at another time.
Yeah, that's a huge topic. That's up there.
Makes me think about brothers, though. So brother reverts.
Yeah.
There's a lot fewer of them than there are of females. So
but they are out there.
That's how do they socialise? How do they get in contact with people? A lot of revert gets groups. It'll be thingy for sisters and I've not looked for it. I've not seen that many groups for revert brothers. But
I don't think there are. It's something that I've looked for before, not for myself, of course, but I was contacted by someone who was struggling. It's a male revert, and if anybody's aware of anything out there for him, that'd be great. Please get in touch and let me know. And it's something that he is struggling to find a local small group, even if it's a sort of middle of the road group, because it seems that for sisters, alhamdulillah, we have a lot available to us.
Absolutely.
By way of circles for converts, there's a lot going, and definitely circles and meetings and tea groups and book clubs and stuff that seems to be available for women. There doesn't seem to be anything available for the brother reverts, or even for born Muslim males who are looking to get back into the deen and trying to get a little bit more involved. Perhaps they're trying to leave behind some negative influence friends, and now they're looking to try and make better friends. There's less out there for them. So if anybody is aware of anything that's in particular in Manchester, in the northwest and the northeast, if you're aware of any groups that are for brothers, please let us know, and we will get that information out there, because brothers do struggle with this issue a lot.
It's a great point, isn't it? Because I suppose with born brothers and sisters that are born into it, they may not be from practicing families, they may be from a branch that they then don't agree with, all that sort of stuff, and then where do they go? Because they're not technically a revert, but actually in terms of knowledge base they may be very similar to us, they may be very similar support to us. Well,
in our Sunday group we had a few people coming along, didn't we, that were born into the religion but maybe hadn't been practicing, or had maybe gone astray at some point and then wanted to come back and wanted to relearn everything. So we do need more facilities out there for that as well, because certainly with the brothers, the groups that I've been looking for that are for the brothers seem to be all about tajweed, but really advanced Quran classes, and there needs to be something that's sort of for the earlier stages.
That's it, and that's something that needs to, I actually spoke about this on Facebook recently, that even beginners tajweed classes should really be called sort of false beginners or beginner intermediate, because they're aimed at born Muslims who have a whole wealth of understanding of Arabic lexicon that as a revert you don't. And I've known revert sisters going to beginners tajweed classes at sort of colleges excuse me, that was my bracelet, colleges in London, and coming out like absolutely distraught because they're expected to recite surahs in the first lesson. They can't even read Arabic.
We need our ABCs, don't we, before we start going into whole words and things. But
I do believe that is something a few organisations are running, beginners Taj, it's education. It will come slowly. I think more organisations are becoming aware of the needs of the revert community now.
And some of these classes can be expensive, but if you look online, that you can get some of them where they're sponsored, or they have a few places that are available for free for reverts or converts, if you're somebody who perhaps can't afford to sign on, because they can be expensive, and a lot of them are online now, I think. But we will try and post on our social media some of the information that we've discussed today. There's a couple of books out there as well that might be a little bit helpful in trying to navigate through the whole new friends.
I think it's that thing of you relearning to know yourself.
Yeah.
Then you've got to relearn how you want to do friendships, what sort of things you're going to go out to, and that's going to be very different. And then learning actually what are the sort of friends I want, because that might be very different from before you were Muslim. Yeah. And that's okay. But you have to know yourself before you know what you're going to want out of a friendship.
And that can be hard if you're somebody who doesn't sit well in your own company for a while, because sometimes it does just take a little bit of time to sit there by yourself, to navigate a bit of it by yourself, and then start trying to meet new people, deciding what it is you actually enjoy. If it's not drinking and going out, you know, the whole travelling situation and travelling as sisters by yourself, that's a whole other topic as well that we will definitely get to in another show. I think one thing we're finding is that a lot of these shows definitely overlap and touch on each other with the topics and the issues that we're covering.
Themes, isn't it, that we've got? Yeah. Single issues, but lots of themes that are sort of overarching.
That link into each other. So if anybody has any questions for next week, we haven't picked the topic for next week yet, and we're probably going to have a little chat after the show today. If we've touched on anything that anybody wants us to discuss next week, if you have a topic in mind that you in particular would like us to deal with, if you've got any questions about what we've discussed today, you're welcome to send it through to our social media or through to the Heritage Radio social media, which is also on Instagram, and then our direct one is Converts in Conversation. We can try and respond to you throughout the week if you'd rather do it off air. I do try and respond to all messages within 24 hours. We also have our Twitter, which is Converts in Convo, and there is the Heritage Radio Twitter as well, which I think is at Heritage Radio FM.
I think you're right.
Or is it AM? FM.
And also what we'll try to do after our episode and maybe through the week is kind of try and provide resources for support, for socialising, for building your own support network sort of on our social media, so that there are some more practical and pragmatic help for you to kind of, you know, feather your nest and kind of build your own support network and kind of reach out to some of these fantastic groups and organisations that are out there sort of trying to bring reverts together so that we don't feel as alone.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Right, well, thank you very much, everybody, for listening. We will be back with you next Sunday, 2 p.m, Converts in Conversation, Heritage Radio 90.6 FM.
Assalamu alaikum for now, everyone.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Bye.